Yeah. Well, it could be.
It could be
if the evolution of intelligence on Mars was accelerated by a factor of 2. That's not a big factor of 2.
Right.
Meaning that
helped.
Intelligence arose on Mars
Right.
2 billion years after it formed, rather than, in the case of the Earth, 4.5 or so.
Right.
And, one thing I really want to do is, if I ever have a say or go to Mars, I would like to visit those caves, the lava tubes in Mars, because they are protected from the surface, bombardment by cosmic rays and all kinds of things happening, the ultraviolet radiation. So in those caves, I want to check if there are any prehistoric paintings or any technological objects there. I completely agree with you. A factor of 2 is not a big deal. And you can ask also whether on Earth there was a sophisticated technological civilization before us that somehow, either through self-inflicted wounds or because of a natural catastrophe, disappeared.
Well, there's a lot of people that think that, especially now that they're looking at the pyramids and these structures that appear to be underneath the pyramids that they're examining. Those Italian scientists that have found these structures that are up to 2 kilometers deep.
Right.
There's some wild stuff in Egypt.
Well, I want to see that data. I haven't seen the paper itself. I just saw reports about it. But definitely on Earth as well. And the problem of Earth is that documented human history is only 8,000 years old.
Right.
And 8,000 years, is just a millionth of the age of the Milky Way galaxy. It's nothing.
Are you including things like Göbekli Tepe in that? Because that's 11,000 plus.
So but it's not really documented in written form,
Right.
So I'm talking about, But you are correct that our knowledge of what happened on Earth is really limited, because the human species existed for a few million years, and we have documentation at the level of 10,000 years. If you go back to that, it would be 11,000.
Not a lot.
Not much more.
Yeah.
But
the issue is actual evidence, right? There's just not a lot of evidence, because a lot of evidence just gets swallowed by the Earth.
Exactly.
Especially over long periods of time, which is why it's so fascinating looking at that thing on Mars, because if there was any kind of life that was capable of building structures on Mars, it had to be a long time ago. Like, when was Mars? There's a bunch of theories. Maybe you can help me. Like, what do you think is the predominant theory that explains the lack of atmosphere on Mars? Do you think it was an impact?
No, Mars is a less massive planet than the Earth, and therefore it has less gravitational grip on its atmosphere. And as to why the atmosphere was lost, there are various ideas. It may have to do with an eruption on the sun that removed it, or the magnetic field, the lack of a strong enough magnetic field to retain the atmosphere. We don't know for sure, but we know it happened about 2 to 2.5 billion years ago, at the middle of its life.
Can I ask you this? At 2.5 billion years, was it closer to the sun?
No. It was roughly at the same place.
The same distance?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And
then so 2.5 billion years ago, it lost its atmosphere.
Yes.
So if it did have life, that life would have to... So we would have to be looking at something that's literally 2+ billion years old,
yes.
The remnants of a structure, which also seems kind of unlikely, right? It also seems like there probably wouldn't be much there.
I actually did a calculation. The biggest risk for anything on the surface is all these impacts by asteroids, and I calculated that...
And micrometeors, everything, right? Because there's nothing stopping.
That's right. And I calculated the amount of energy over a few billion years that was deposited on the surface of Mars is equivalent to, hundreds of Hiroshima-type nuclear explosions per square kilometer. It's really huge.
Right.
And because you're integrating over billions of years.
So that square probably wouldn't be there anymore.
Well, there could be some relics that somehow stick, like it depends what it was originally, if the Empire State Building, even
if
after...
it was enormous and made completely out of stone, like the pyramids. Maybe that's what would be left of it.
Maybe. I think we should be definitely open-minded and guided by evidence. That's the key.
Well, that's what's interesting, is because that is evidence.
That is evidence. We should go there clear the dust and see if it's just a rock that happened to be shaped like that. I mean, you could have rocks that are shaped like that.
Let's bring it back to this. Is it 3AI Atlas?
No, 3I Atlas.
3I Atlas.
So 3 means it's the third object identified by survey telescopes over the past 8 years. We didn't have the technology before that, and so we just don't know how much traffic there is of interstellar.
We missed a lot.
So we had, the first survey telescope that found Oumuamua was Pan-STARRS in Hawaii, and the reason it was constructed is because the U.S. Congress tasked NASA to find 90% of all objects bigger than a football field passing close to Earth. These are potential killer asteroids that can destroy a region on Earth. We want to protect the Earth, so we want to know about them. And they asked NASA and the National Science Foundation to search, to build observatories that will search for such objects. And that's why Pan-STARRS was established. And then it saw a near-Earth object, so they flagged it for that reason. And they realized it's moving too fast to be bound by gravity to the sun.